Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to Fuel Rocks News. It's a Rocks Fuel podcast. Of course, I am your host, Lashard Binkley. You can always find me on Twitter at Binkley Hoops and all my written work over Rocks on that side. I also am a weekly contributor on Fox 26 with Nate Griffin, talking about, of course, your Houston Rockets. And on today's show, we are breaking down the Rockets' win on the road. They win another game. I think that's their fourth straight win on the road as they defeat the Oklahoma City Thunder 112-106. Definitely a big win for the Rockets. The Rockets came in, probably two of their most embarrassing, or kind of hard to say, they've had a lot of embarrassing losses this year, but it was two really bad losses to the Boston Celtics and to the Charlotte Hornets. And, no mistake, both of those teams are playing really well, but it still was a really lackluster effort in those two losses at home. And when they have been playing really well at home, they have been the best home team coming into those two games. And then they got embarrassed in both of those games, and all hell kind of broke loose on Rockets Twitter and all across the NBA world, as people kind of buried the Rockets and said that they were done. And then you throw on top that the Rockets didn't make any trades. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And it was kind of a perfect storm of crap for the Houston Rockets the last few days. So even though they played the Oklahoma City Thunder team without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, without Williams, without AJ Mitchell, it was still going to be a tough game regardless, because the Thunder always play hard no matter who's on the court, and they still had Chet Holmgren out there. And when you're the Rockets and you've been playing as bad as you have recently, you don't care who's out on the court. You just want to get a win, and that's what the Rockets were able to do today, 112-106. And in this episode, I want to give a quick recap of that, go ahead and also break down how the Rockets supporting cast outside of Kevin Durant and Alperensengun actually showed up in this game, and they were a big reason why the Rockets were able to win, because Kevin Durant was kind of shut out for most of the game until that fourth quarter, but his supporting cast finally stepped up, and that's something they're going to need this entire season. Like I said, also give a real quick recap on the trade deadline. I didn't actually do a show for the deadline. It wasn't really anything to talk about. As you see, the Rockets were one of only a handful of teams that didn't make any moves. So I'm going to give my quick thoughts on that, kind of going forward, with more players being able to be claimed through the buyout method tomorrow, because they still have to go through waivers. Some were cleared today, some more will be cleared tomorrow, so I'll kind of get a little bit into that as well. But of course, I wanted to give a quick recap of the Rockets 112-106 win. Like I said, like pretty much every team does now, they try to take the ball out of Kevin Durant's hands. The Oklahoma City Thunder absolutely did that in that first half, as he only had 3 shot attempts, made all 3. It was his lowest shot attempts in a first half for a game. He played actually more than 20 minutes in that half. And they did everything they could to take that ball out of Kevin Durant's hand and force everybody else to do it. And why wouldn't you do that when the Rockets have been struggling outside of Kevin Durant to get any type of offense going? Sengun only had 7 points last game. Tari Eason didn't play last game. Reece Shepherd has been on a monumental shooting slump lately. He kind of broke out of that a little bit today as far as his field goal, but he still was only 1 for 4 from 3. So if you're an opposing team, why wouldn't you force somebody else to beat you outside of Kevin Durant, who's one of the greatest scorers of all time? I would absolutely do that. And that's exactly what the Thunder did. And that's a big reason why they have that 6-point lead at halftime. They actually had a 15-point lead at one point in the third quarter. And then that's when the rest of the Rockets finally started to show up. Tari Eason had a huge game. He led all scores in this game with 26 points. He made 5 threes. It was 10 of 22 from the field. And then you also had Jabari Smith, who over the last 12 games has been playing really well, really good basketball over the last 12 games. He struggled for like several weeks. I know a lot of people were down and out on him, but he has been really good recently. He had another 22 points today, another 10 rebounds. He's just kind of doing a little bit of everything. He had a block shot, played some really good perimeter defense. Him and Tari did a great job helping the Rockets get this win. Something I forgot to mention, another reason why they had a lot more opportunities also, because Amen Thompson was available, but he was dealing with an illness and did not play in this game. So that's another reason why Reece Shepherd started this game. All 5 Rocket starters were in double digits. Can't go too far without talking about Alperensengun, of course, who also did everything on the court. He had a triple-double early in the second half. He led the Rockets in assists. He also picked it up on the scoring side in the second half. He finished with 17 points. This is probably the most, I would say, vocal I've seen Alperen Sengun on the court, on the bench all season long. I mean, he was directing people on the bench when he was in the game. He was telling people where to go. He was a running the offense at the top of the key. Uh, they tried to put Chet Holmgren on him, but he wasn't really able to slow him down. When they did double team him, he was able to get the pass out. When they didn't double team him, that's when he was able to score. Like I said, he did a little bit of everything. And probably the most important thing, most impressive thing is that he held the ball probably majority of the time, the entire game, and only had one turnover. That is huge when you have 11-1 assist to turnover ratio, especially from a center. That is pretty remarkable, and that's pretty much why he had a plus 13 on the game, which is the most out of anybody in that starting lineup. Also, to me, probably his best defense game of the season, not just because of the 3 blocks and 3 steals, which were great, also because the way he was switching out on the defenders or on ball handlers, guarding the paint. He wasn't getting blown by all when they try to set screens and kind of put him in that pick and roll situation with faster guards. He just did an absolutely wonderful job overall on the defensive end. Definitely one of his more complete games of the season, even though he only scored quote unquote, scored 17 points. He did a wonderful job on the defensive end, and you got to give absolute credit to him because he was a big reason why Oklahoma City only scored 106 points. They only scored 54 points in the second half, and they only had 22 in that third quarter. That was a big third quarter where the Rockets outscored them 34-22. Kevin Durant did end up finishing with 20 points, but most of that was from the free throw line in that fourth quarter. And he did he was 3 for 7 from the field in the second half, as he was able to get a little bit more loose because they were so fearful of, they were playing Tari Eason a lot closer because he continued to make threes. Jabari Smith continued to make shots, and that loosened up a little bit for Kevin Durant, even though, like I say, he got most of his points from the free throw line. But it's a big deal because teams are going to do this for the rest of the season. I don't care how many threes Jabari and Tari make. They're not going to let Durant go one-on-one. So they just got to continue to make them. And Reed Shepherd eventually has to shoot his way out of it because, again, he's struggling from three-point line. Again, he has some defensive mislaps, even though he did have that big steal in the fourth quarter against Chet where he almost got pinned under the basket, was able to get around him and get that big steal late in the fourth quarter. But he's just going to have to just shoot himself out of this slump that he's in from the three-point range because the Rockets 100% need him to be able to do anything because he's one of the few guys on the team that can actually make shots and occasionally create his own shot. So they're going to need him regardless if he doesn't always play well on defense. They're going to need him on the offensive end. So again, the Rockets starters scored 101 of the 112 points. They only got 11 points off the bench, and 8 of those came from J.D. Davison, who, in his limited, 18 minutes, had a really good game off the bench. He made a couple of mistakes, but overall, he had a really good game. Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, I was one of the ones saying be patient, and I still think that way, but man, it's getting closer and closer to the time where if he's going to, like today, he was 1 for 6 from three-point range, only had 3 points, didn't really do much of anything. He's going to continue to struggle like this. You got to give Isaiah Crawford at least some of those minutes. We saw in the last game, the few minutes that he had, he was making plays and didn't play at all in this game. I mean, at this point, he can't be any worse than Dorian Finney-Smith. I know Finney-Smith is a good defensive player, but it's not like he's a shutdown defender, at least not this season, coming back from the injury. So to me, why not give Isaiah Crawford those minutes to see what he can do? Because right now, Dorian Finney-Smith is not giving you anything. Another thing to keep an eye on is, of course, without Steven Adams, you expect Clint Capella to play a lot more minutes, and he just hasn't been playing those minutes. He only played 8 minutes this game. A lot of games, he's only playing around 10 minutes or less. They're going a lot more with the small ball when Alperen Sengun is off the court. So Clint Capella is really not getting a lot of minutes, and I don't know if that's just a matter of they just want to see small ball more. They don't think Clint can play major minutes, which probably is more the case. So right now, especially when you're having to put Reed into that starting lineup, you don't have a lot of firepower off the bench at all. Aaron Holiday didn't play at all. Josh Okogie went 0 for 3. He didn't really do much of anything. He had actually more fouls than he did attempts. Actually didn't make a shot. So, I mean, of course, he had more fouls than made shots. So he didn't really provide you much of anything. So it was all the Rocket starters today, and it was good to see them win when they didn't have everything that they needed from Kevin Durant. And not like it was Kevin Durant's fault, it's just that they were forcing the ball out of his hands, which we have seen a lot of times lately actually work for most teams. Just real quick before I go into a little bit of the trade deadline, the post I put up yesterday where the Rockets since January 1st have been the worst offensive team in the NBA. And that's over before this game, over a 20-game stretch. They were either 29th or 30th in points scored per game, 3-point shooting, true percentage shooting, and free throw shooting, and 26 in offensive rating. That is pretty bad considering that's a 20-game stretch, which is a fourth of the season. That's how bad the Rockets offense has been. And probably the biggest surprise out of all of that is the Rockets were still 11-9 somehow in those 20 games, even though their offense was really, I can't even come up with a word worse than bad. Horrible, despicable, down in the dumps. I don't know. It was just really bad offense the Rockets have had for pretty much the entire calendar year of 2026. So it was good to see that the rest of the Rockets actually showed up because for a long time, it's just been Kevin Durant, Sengun, sometimes not even Sengun, sometimes just Kevin Durant. So to see all five starters score at least 16 points, that was a big reason why the Rockets were able to come away with this victory today. Real quick before I wrap this show up, I want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline. Of course, the Rockets, as you know by now, didn't do anything with the trade deadline. Something I've been pointing out for weeks now is that their salary cap structure made it almost impossible for them to make any kind of significant move. I know we've been seeing reports that James Harden wanted to come back to the Rockets, which the only way the Rockets can make that work is if they traded Kevin Durant or alperensengun. Neither one of those would happen. Fred VanVleet would have to agree to any trade. I don't think he was going to agree to go to the Clippers. I don't know if the Clippers would even want Fred VanVleet. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. The Clippers actually have to want the players that you're sending. So it's not just as simple as, hey, James Harden wanted to come back. So trade who they have to want Fred VanVleet with him coming back from a major injury after 30 years old. They would have to want whatever other guy you was going to throw in there, Dorian Finney-Smith, who hasn't done anything all season. So it's not just as simple as, I know it's good for clickbait and headlines to say James Harden wanted to come back and the Rockets didn't want him. The Rockets just didn't have a way to really bring him here, even if they wanted to bring him here, which I don't think they wanted to bring him here anyway. And also, some of the trades that were made, it was just so difficult with the Rockets structure, the way their contracts are. They have two guys making over $30 million. That's Sengun and Kevin Durant. They weren't trading either one of those guys for pretty much anybody that was being mentioned outside of Giannis. They have Fred VanVleet, which I just talked about. He hasn't applied no trade clause, making $25 million. Then after that, he drops all the way down to $12 million at Dorian Finney-Smith, which who's going to trade for Dorian Finney-Smith at this point? Jabari Smith at $12 million, but he has a poison pill contract, which means that if he gets traded to another team, that team would have to take on $22 million instead of $12 million. That's a hindrance trying to trade him. Then you have Reed Shepherd, who has struggled a lot lately. So if you're another team, maybe you take a chance on him, but I don't think the Rockets are just ready to give up on him just yet. Ahmed Thompson making $9 million. They wasn't trading him. And then you go down to Clint Capella at $6 million. You can't trade him because you don't have another center. With Steven Adams' injury, I think he would have been definitely a trade candidate if Adams was still healthy, but he's not. So they weren't going to trade Clint Capella. Then you have Tari Eason at $5 million. Not going to find value in the league that's coming in that's going to be as good as Tari Eason. I'm sorry. And you saw that today, what value Tari Eason brings when he's healthy. So you weren't going to trade Tari Eason for some other guy in the league making $5-6 million a year. And then the other guys are all making vet minimum. And two of those guys, Aaron Holiday and Jayshawn Tate, also have implied no trade clauses. So Rockets just did not have the room to make a trade. So they were always going to be looking in the buyout market. Like I said, some guys were cleared waivers today, so they could be brought in at the vet minimum. And then you have other guys tomorrow. That list is going to expand tomorrow. The Rockets are right up against the first tax apron. They only have around $1.25 million, but the good thing is anybody they bring in now will be on a prorated basis. So they'll be brought in and paid only what's left in the season and not a full vet minimum. So that's why the Rockets will be able to bring in a guy like Lonzo Ball or somebody like that, because that'll be under the $1.2 million that they currently have. And they can sign anybody, even if the guy is, if you're over that first tax apron, you can't sign anybody that's contract was more than $14 million before they were bought out. The good thing is the Rockets are right under that, so that doesn't really stop them from doing that. But they could pretty much sign most guys that have been in the league 5 years or less. And I say 5 years because that's where the scale is on who you can bring in. That's where the kind of the scale starts as far as what the Rockets can afford. Anything like 5 years or less, 5 years or more, that's when it gets a lot more tricky because that's when the Rockets going to be over that 1.25 and they won't be able to do it. So just keep that in mind. As you see names kind of thrown out there like Cam Thomas, they can absolutely sign to a prorated deal for the rest of the season. So we just got to see what the Rockets do in the buyout market because that's really their only option to improve the team. So the trade deadline is passed. And unless Fred VanVleet can come back for the playoffs, this is going to be your roster for the rest of the season. So we'll just kind of see what they do in the buyout market. I just want to kind of give a quick recap of the Rockets cap structure, which, yes, they put themselves in that situation when they signed guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Clint Capella. They put themselves in that situation. So as far as the cap structure, they don't have anybody to blame but themselves on that. But, injuries also played a big role in that because, like I said, players like Clint Capella definitely could have been on a trade market, but you couldn't do that now with the injury to Steven Adams. Again, the Rockets come away with a 112-106 victory. They'll be back in action on Tuesday as they're off Sunday and Monday. I'll be out at game Tuesday bringing you the pre and post game, of course, as usual, everything in between like I always do. So definitely, if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe and welcome in if it's your first time. If you are subscribed, as usual, I appreciate all the support that you bring to the channel. As we continue to try to grow this channel out. Like I said, I appreciate everybody that always tunes in and let me know down in the comments, what do you think of today's win? What do you think about the Rockets not making any moves during the trade deadline? And who would you like them to bring in as far as the buyout market to try to improve this team? Let me know down there in the comments. Usual, I appreciate all the support and make sure you check back with the next episode of the Rocket Fuel Podcast.